All right, just finished with a whole day's of work. Right now it's 7 p.m. and I just finished uploading a complete banger for you guys. Can't wait to show it to you. You know, as it was, 3 p.m., 4 p.m. when I started filming it, I was like, I could eat lunch right now or I could, do work. I was like, nah, fuck it. I'll push myself through this hardship. That way, when I was hungry, when I was fasting, it just made me work even harder and push myself to the absolute limits to really squeeze the value for you guys, because I'm taking you through the exact transformation one of my clients has been able to make throughout 4 months. His name is Patrik. He's a professional handball player, meaning he has 1.5 hours of high intense cardio 6 times a week, and was able to gain 9 kilos of lean mass, of mostly lean mass, throughout those 4 months, and called it a really, really successful lean bulk. I'm taking you guys through his physical transformation, through his mental transformation, how he improved his habits, routines, lifestyle in general, set it a, set wake up time for himself, created a morning routine, created a night routine, established system in his life, how his trainings looked like, how his nutrition looked like, how tracking his calories looked like, how each and every single one of the macronutrients looked like. And I'm also taking you guys through how working one-on-one with him, with us, has looked like over the past 4 months. I know that it is 1 hour long, 40 minutes long, but it is for a reason, because it has a lot of value. I could be like, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, and I would call it, that's the end and that's it. But no, I just really wanted to squeeze the value out for you guys, so that way you can even do it for yourself, by yourself. I'm taking you guys through how course modules looked like, how his personal Notion dashboard looked like, how our connection on one-on-one WhatsApp looked like. It's just a whole lots of things. Grab pen and paper, sit down, take 40 minutes out of your day. Trust me, it will be worth it. All right, see you. All right, here's the exact breakdown case study on how one of my clients has been able to gain 9 kilos of lean mass in just 4 months. Now, transformation has been absolutely insane. Of course, it was natural transformation. He didn't take any enhancements or stuff like that. His name is Patrik. He's 17 years old, 185 centimeters tall. And as y'all can see, he went from 64 kilos to 73 kilos in just 4 months. Now, before I run you guys through the whole physical journey, I want to show you what I'll be covering in this YouTube video. So besides his physical journey, I'm going to also take you through his mental journey, like how did his habits, routine, his day-to-day lifestyle change, because I mentioned this almost like every single day on my Instagram stories, that your body is a direct reflection of your habits and of your lifestyle. And the way you do one thing is the way you do absolutely everything. The way you treat your environment, the way you treat the way you treat people around you, from clothes that you pick up, the room that you clean, like everything. That is how you'll be treating your work in the gym as well, nutrition as well, recovery as well. Like the way you do one thing is really the way you do absolutely everything. So we'll cover his mental journey as well. And I'm going to show you how did my one-on-one coaching with Patrik look like, from weekly check-ins, like specifically weekly Google form, weigh-ins, progress photos, checking calls. How did the calls look? I'm going to show you guys the trainerize, his training program, what he had access to, from functional workouts to bodybuilding workouts, athletic leg days, sprints, intervals, stuff like that. WhatsApp community and just our communication, from video analysis of his movements, of the workouts that he was doing and stuff like that, to personal Notion dashboard, right? His customized meal plan, training plan, and more. All right, you'll see. I'm really excited about sharing this stuff. Nutrition as well. Like when I was onboarding him, I wasn't just like, all right, this is your nutrition, this is what you need to eat every single day, macros, calories, that's it. Like, no, we were upgrading it through time, just like each and every single one of those sections, because he was upgrading himself as well. So those things needed to be upgraded as well, right? So how can I say 9 kilos of lean mass? Like, why can I say this? Because clearly you can see the abs are still visible, and he didn't gain much body fat. Maybe he gained like 2 to 4%. We didn't measure a body fat percentage, and we didn't have any DEXA scans or stuff like that. But as y'all can see, the abs are still visible, veins still visible on his arms. That's why I can say this. All right. And when I was onboarding him, when he completed a client assessment form, which every single one of the new guys gets when he comes to the program, he was telling me that one of his weak spots was his back. You know, he wanted to double down on his back, and just look at the back transformation, dude. Lads got bigger. You can also see the triceps, rear delts got bigger. He finally got that V shape that he wanted to have. And if we take a look from the side, his posture got better in general. Shoulders, of course, got bigger. If you look at his chest got bigger as well. If you look at it from the side and from the front, but we didn't double down on the chest as much as I doubled down on it with a lot of skinny guys that I work with, because he's a handball player, right? And bigger chest was just kind of decrease the force he could generate with throwing the ball. You know, it's logical because when you do this and you have bigger chest, it's like in it the bigger the chest, you know, it's kind of in a way, you know, it kind of limits you to generate more force by throwing the ball, right? Just handball explained in simple terms, all right? But I'm pretty sure that you know the point, right? Here's a picture of him playing handball. Before he joined the V8 athlete program, he didn't have no vision, clear why, didn't know what he wanted to achieve and why he wanted to achieve it. That way, he didn't know what to do on a daily basis in order to get closer towards his goals. Like he didn't know what actions actually align with the goals that he has, with long term and short term goals that he has. And then he just ended being lost, you know, and just going with the flow with everything from routines, habits, nutrition, training, recovery, you name it. And he happened to be in a position where he was always starting things, but just couldn't stay consistent because he didn't know why he was doing those things. So every single time his emotions got bigger than his vision, than his drive, right? And he was just always falling short. That way, he didn't have the self respect that he wanted to have, because deep down, he knew that he was not the man of his word, because he was always starting things, always saying to himself, I'm going to start training consistently. I'm going to, treat my nutrition the way I need to treat it consistently. I'm going to fix my routines and habits. He was always saying those things to himself, and he was consistent with those things. Don't get me wrong, for maybe a month max, month and a half max, right? But then he just fall short, 2 days turned into 3 days turned into a week turned into 2 weeks, and before he knew it, 1 month has went by and he was starting from point zero again, and he didn't make much progress that he wanted to do, right? So that way the insecurity started to kick in. He wasn't just confident in himself in general. So he just decided to do what everyone else around him was doing, because his environment, as you all will see later in this video, was a really determining factor. He was doing what everyone else around him was doing, because other handball players, yes, they were training handball, but they were only like handball players, right? Their routines were fucked up, habits fucked up, still addicted to watching porn, addicted to like scrolling. Recovery wasn't where it needed to be. It was just school and handball, and he didn't want that shit, but he was doing it on conscious and on subconscious level, because that way it just made him feel comfortable, and it just made him feel that void of not being the man he knew he could be, but he wasn't. With those things, he was just hiding from the version of himself that he could be. Now, don't get me wrong, he came to me with pretty like clear mind. All right, he didn't have big of a porn addiction. He wasn't watching porn at all, and he didn't have any problems with scrolling as well. But he did have problems with routines, on what to do first thing upon waking up to set himself up for success. And the same went for a night routine. And he didn't really know what plans to follow when it comes down to training, when it comes down to optimizing his handball, his handball performance and nutrition in general. So as I mentioned, he didn't have a set wake up time. He didn't have any routine or a system that he could rely on. He wasn't training as hard as he could be. Like, he was training like a bitch, right? He was like 3 sets of
8 to 12 reps to 80% of my capabilities, to the point where he would just get the pump, and then he was like, yeah, the muscles are growing. Nah, 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 bro. He had more inside of him, right? Every single one of you guys has more inside of you if you don't train to failure. He was doing bodybuilding movements only, although he was an athlete, and then he wondered why he got slower, like why his performance got worse, but he was more consistent with the gym. He was more dialed in with the gym. And then he was just like, nah, I'll switch it to something else, or he just stopped training and did handball practice only, for example. He had problems since childhood with his back, with his posture, but he never really worked on fixing those things, right? He was just eating whatever he felt like eating and whenever he felt like eating, right? He was sometimes binge eating before going to bed. Sometimes he was in a deficit. Sometimes he was in a 2,000 calories surplus. He just went on and off with everything. Like his nutrition wasn't really dialed in and where he wanted to be. He wasn't tracking his macros or calories. Like he didn't know how much of each macro of calories he was consuming on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. But most importantly, he was treating his sleep like it's trash. He was going to sleep at random hours, exposing himself to blue light. And by random hours, I don't mean, he went to sleep sometimes at 9 p.m., sometimes at, 10 p.m. No, that window was from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. All right. His sleep hours were just random. All right. He was exposing himself to blue light before going to bed, scrolling like most of the guys do. The quality of sleep, consequently, wasn't as good as it could be. He didn't expose himself to sunlight right after waking up to reset the circadian rhythm for better quality sleep the next night. And he always just wanted to gain weight and bulk up, right? But he couldn't stay consistent for a long period of time, as I mentioned. And he tried dirty bulking. He tried with shortcuts like drinking protein shake, drinking those gainers, eating protein bars. He was thinking that protein bars would get him the muscles that he wanted, would enable him to bulk up and were still healthy. Although, as I mentioned, a lot of my Instagram stories that protein bars, 90%, 95% of them are absolute bullshit because they're not even protein bars. They're oat bars because they have more carbs than proteins. They're named protein bars because they just have the amount of protein that companies allow them to have the name protein written on the bar, and that's it. And then they just throw a shit ton of carbs in there for better taste. That's it. He was thinking those things would make some drastic changes, but clearly they didn't. When he joined my program, the first thing we did on our first one-on-one call was figure out why did he want to achieve the things he wanted to achieve, what are the things that he wants to achieve, and why they matter to him, right? And because of that, every day had a direction, and his actions were aligned with his long term goals, right? Because first, of course, without then, what are your goals specifically? Why do you want to achieve them? So that way, when we created the daily tasks that would move him ahead, that would, guarantee him success on a daily basis, he would know why he's doing those things, even on the days when he wasn't motivated, right? When, insecurity started to kick in, when doubt would start to kick in and shit like that, when other people around him would tell him, oh, you're not making any progress. But deep down, he would still know why he's doing the things that he was doing, and he believed in himself and in the process. And instead of just feeling lost or just going with the flow like he did in the past, he became more intentional with every part of his life. His routine, habits, nutrition, training, and recovery all supported the man he wanted to become. And he became someone who finished what he started. Finally, the man of his word, right? And as a result, he built that self respect and confidence because he kept the promise he made to himself, right? That carried over into every area of his life because, as I said, the way you do one thing is the way you do completely everything. That goes for the negative and for the positive. And rather than following the crowd for comfort, he chose discipline, right? He was like, nah, fuck it. I know exactly why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. And this why wasn't just, oh, I want to be the best version of myself, because he had really problems with those things. He really didn't know. We had to dig down deep on that one-on-one call. I think it was like 2.5 hours long to really go deep into the roots. So that way, the emotions could never ever get bigger than his drive, than his vision, than his why. You know, and that's how he started, consistently waking up. He decided to consistently wake up. I remember like the day he messaged me, he was like, dude, like I want to have a consistent wake up time. And I was like, bet. We jumped on a call and he was like 7 a.m. and we created him a routine that will guarantee him success on a daily basis because he still went to school and he just wanted to have systems that he could rely on a daily basis on the days when he had school and on the weekends before game days, whatever. So that way he could really stay consistent with it no matter like what challenge life threw at him because life is dynamic and he wanted to have a routine that he could do on a daily basis no matter like what would happen in his day-to-day life, right? We built a structured routine and reliable systems that kept him on track. This is how it looked like. He first things first, he made his bed, didn't hit snooze, made his bed, hydration, 2 glasses of water, right? Electrolytes, lemon juice with salt, pink Himalayan salt, but normal salt was also right. Then he was exposing himself to sunlight while brushing his teeth within the first like 10 to 20 minutes of his morning. Then he kicked off the day with hitting 100 push-ups because, chest, we still like double down on chest with doing 100 push-ups. We coupled that with maybe bench pressing, incline bench press and push-ups in the gym 1 to 2 times a week. And that was it when it comes down to hitting the chest. And then he did the journal to write down the things that he was grateful for, remind himself of why he was doing the things that he was doing. He reminded himself about the things that we talked about on our first one-on-one call because I see like people time and time again. I was the same, he was the same, like constantly chasing perfection. All right, constantly chasing not perfection, but I would say just new things, new. It needs to be new, obsessed with new things. Like, no, dude, like us people, us humans, we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. Because if you're always obsessed with chasing new things, first of all, like you'll never be grateful for like the things that you have right now, for the process. You're not gonna trust the process. Like that way you'll just constantly fall off and you won't stay consistent with anything, right? Because the emotion of like shiny object syndrome and shit like that will always win, right? Journal, reminded himself about why he was doing the things that he was doing, wrote down the things that he was grateful for on a daily basis, created a 5-step um, tasks. He wrote down the five most important tasks he wanted to get done on a daily basis, and he wrote down 5 of his main goals to remind himself, on the goals that he also had. Right? He finally started training to failure. All right. At the beginning, 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks of February, he was still training like a bitch, and I was like, dude, push yourself to fucking failure. All right, I don't give a shit. So he started focusing he started training to failure, and also like he started focusing on strength, power, speed, mobility, and performance, and not just aesthetics and looks and stuff like that. Although, like as you all could see, we still kept the look, we still kept the abs visible. He also started to eat more intentionally to support his goals. What do I mean with this specifically? Like most importantly, he started to focus on his pre-workout meals because that was one of the big problems that he had. Like how did his nutrition look like? He would wake up, eat a breakfast, then he had snack in school, lunch at home, and then he had training session in the evening at like 6, 5, right? So from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. he didn't eat anything. And then after, practice, he would come home. It would be like 9 p.m. It was time to go to sleep because he needed to wake up at 7 a.m. again. That way, if he was to eat a big meal, like he would interrupt his sleep and stuff like that. But he didn't have the appetite before a training session, before handball practice, because after handball practice, he would go to the gym and he was just like, dude, like what can I do? We found a solution, we found a system that worked for him really well. We lowered the amount of carbs that he was consuming on breakfast, on lunch, because throughout those times of the day, he just wasn't active. And we were like, let's make the pre-workout meal your highest carb meal in your whole day, because it needs to be, right? That way we found that, gap to really fit in. And he still had appetite meanwhile, right? He started tracking his calories and macros, so his nutrition, matched his objective instead of just relying on guesswork, right? And he followed off many times, all right? He followed off many times. Like, I remember one time we were on a call, and I was like, "Are you tracking your macros and calories?" When I asked him, "Are you tracking?" He was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Show it to me, screen share it to me right here, all right?" Because I could see it in his eyes that something wasn't dialed in, right? And he showed it to me, and he was like, it was like 2 days it was like a deficit, one day it was like, perfect, and then for like 2 days it was, he didn't track anything at all, and he was like, "Oh, I forgot," and I was like, "Yeah, that's bullshit, all right?" And so the day after that, he was really like, "Dude, like, I'm so mad at myself," because one of his goals was to become the man of his word. "I'm so mad at myself. I know why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. Like, fuck this shit." And that made his drive to track his calories and macros even bigger, because he was so embarrassed at himself, that he was just like, "Nah, fuck it. It will never repeat again." And it has never repeated again since that day. I think that was like in March, the beginning of March, right? And he finally started to prioritize sleep as a performance tool, by maintaining a consistent bedtime. Most importantly, he limited blue light before bed. We found a solution for him that, 30 minutes before going to sleep without any blue light, because he was still studying on a computer. He still had some work to do on the phone, schoolwork and stuff like that. He would usually go to bed, 1.5 hours after his training session. That way if he still wanted to do stuff for his school, like, he could, but we said like 30 minutes before going to bed, 40 minutes before going to bed, without any blue light, right? He started exposing himself to sunlight first thing in the morning while brushing his teeth, as I mentioned, and consequently his sleep quality really started to improve, because he wasn't exposing himself to any stimulations, any distractions, any stuff like that, any loud music, any music at all before going to sleep, any TV, any stimulations and shit like that. No, like, we wanted the environment to be quiet, to be cold, without any blue light, right? That way we got his hormones in check as well, and that way his sleep was really where it needed to be, right? So all in all, mentally, like, he made a really, really insane transformation, and physically as well. Let's go on. How did, like, working with him look like, and what did he have access to, right? So weekly check-ins, right? Every single week, it was during the weekend, because it was, the time of the week when he had the most amount of time. I sent him a link for the Google Meet, and we got on a call. We jumped on a call. We got like AI note taker that was taking him notes, that was taking notes of the whole conversation. So that way, after the call, he would be like, "All right, boom, 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 boom. The most important things we talked about, summary, action steps, what he needs to do." I uploaded that on his personalized uh, Notion dashboard, and he was just like on a roll, and we got him winning as fast as possible, right? So every single Sunday, how did the weekly check-ins look like? Right? We got on a call with each other every single Friday night, usually, or during the weekend. They need to complete the Google form, right? So it is basically a form of, just for me to see how are you with the basic things and stuff like that. How is your mood? How is your energy? How is your sleep quality? Did you hit your caloric surplus? Did you have like how did the whole week look like specifically? A number of rest days taken. Let me show you, like, muscle soreness. What changes are you noticing on yourself? What are your nearest goals? Again, reminding yourself about your why, about the goals you have, because as humans we need to be constantly reminded more than we need to be taught. How do you feel like you're progressing towards those goals? I followed the workout plan exactly. I did more than the workout plan. We're all training and cardio sessions completed this week. If not, explain why. Did you have any alcohol this week? If yes, what days, how much, number of rest days taken this week, and stuff like that. So that way we could get all of that simple stuff that would just waste our time during the call to talk about out of the way. So that way we could really talk about the root cause of his problems. That way we could really get in depth on each and every single one of our calls. That's also why he managed to make the transformations that he made like so fast in 4 months, not only physically as y'all could see, but mentally, as I showed you as well, right? So that way every single call was just a springboard for a more successful week, month, and it was just repeated. um Besides calls and weekly Google form, he also like uploaded every single Sunday morning a progress pictures a progress picture to really see how was his progress. On a call we talked about, if he changed any of his goals, as he wants to have bigger chest, although he's still a handball player, bigger arms, like, and stuff like that. What changes is he noticing on himself as well? And then besides progress photos, he also uploaded the weight and trainer rise. He went from 65 to 73 kilos, as you can see. And of course, besides weigh-ins and progress photos, there is much more on trainerize. All right, it is a training app, right, where you have like videos in next to every single exercise, instructions, sets, reps, and stuff like that. This is like the heart of the trainerize, if you think about it, right? The most important factor, the most determining factor of this app. It's completely free. After onboarding you, after our first qualification call, I will send you a link to join it. You download the app, you will go through the form, so that way I can really get to work with customizing the training program that works for you and your personal lifestyle, right? So trainerize actually didn't have any of the functional movements, any of the athletic movements. It only had bodybuilding movements, as you can see, videos like this, pull-ups, biceps curls. When it comes down to like simple exercises, they have videos, but when it comes down to more complex ones, nah, like they don't have videos. So I even like uploaded shit ton of videos of myself doing those exercises as well. Okay, so day 1, shoulders and back. Day 2, athletic leg day. Day 3, functional upper body. Day 4, upper body. And day 5, functional leg day. We customized his training program based on his workouts and on his game days, all right? So before game days, like he usually had games on Sunday, on Saturday. So it would be stupid to do a leg day on a Thursday, on a Friday, even on a Wednesday sometimes, although you can, right? So that way, like doing it on Tuesday, leg days on Tuesday were perfect, and then doing athletic leg days on Thursday and on Friday, which are not, hypertrophy movements, which, don't really have much of an impact on, having sore legs 2 days after, are perfect for having, to be on the program on Friday, right? So let me run you guys through just how one of the workouts looked like. All right, let's say athletic leg day. We started with the back lunge plus rotation, plate jumps, right? Lunge jumps plus rotation. Then every single one of the guys in the programs has access to step-by-step Nordics, all right? How to do Nordics, what exercises to do to get better with Nordics, to improve the muscles that enable you to do a Nordic curl. As you can see, band assisted Nordic plus hands, band assisted Nordic, 1.5 Nordic with hands, 1.5 Nordic bend hip, isometric hold, and much more, right? So step-by-step Nordic guide, of course, based on levels, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, and so on. And he had it in the program as well. And as he got better, we replaced those exercises with new ones. We also worked on ankle mobility and hip mobility exercises. That way he, as he would get bigger, as, he would work out more, because besides this, besides working out 5 days a week in the gym, he was also working out in the hall. So that way he had 10 workouts a week, right? Which didn't also make things harder and more challenging with macronutrients, with calories, and achieving that calorie surplus in order to gain the weight that he wanted to, but it also made things more complex with his recovery as well, right? But as you can see, like 1, 2, 3, okay, those were like 3 sets as well, short, like 40-second. You do them for 40 seconds and you're done. And then ankle mobility, hip mobility, 2 sets, and that's it. The workouts, were long, max 1 hour and 20 minutes, right? Nothing more. I didn't want them to be really long, because he was also doing them, back lunge and then plate jumps and then rest and then lunge up, Nordic curl, rest, Nordic round back, bend assist, Nordic rest, and then he would go to the mobility exercises. right? So he would complete the workout 1 hour, sometimes even 50, 40 minutes. And that was it after his handball training sessions, right? So that is how the training plan has looked like for Patrik. And then we established a communication, like where did we talk, how did we send messages to each other, how did we communicate? Through WhatsApp, right? Why through WhatsApp? Because if we were to do this on Instagram, it would be like I would want you to slowly bring back to life those old vices and habits, to get back on reels, to talk with the people, like, you're like, I can reply to you, but I can reply to you later, and then you would get caught up in the messages, and then from messages to reels, a friend would send you a reel, and then you will get caught up in the reels, and then from reels, a lot of people, get on Pornhub and stuff like that. So it's just a domino effect, right? WhatsApp, no distractions, everything is clear, no stimulations, boom, that way focus is just on the communication and improving yourself, right? First of all, V8 athlete group chat, the chat where all of my guys are in here. Every single morning we write good morning in the chat, just so everyone can see all of the people that are on the same path, on the similar path, that are getting after it, motivates you, push you to work even harder. He posted, this is one of the screenshots, where he posted his daily wins. A win is a win, right? If it's a small one, if it's a big one, I don't care, all right? It was like, great day, did some schoolwork, morning habits, morning routine, got those 10K daily steps in, finishing last meal to hit all the macros. Boom, that's it, right? Here you can also see the Calendly link for the weekly check-ins. And then one-on-one communication looked like this, every single week on the weekly check-ins. I forgot to mention that. He was also sending me minimum two, and he could also send me more exercises of him doing the exercises, right? So that way, we wouldn't lose time on a call to talk about those things, right? That way, he would send me the videos of him doing those exercises, and I could, instantly reply and be like, it's in my language, it's in Slovene because he's from Slovenia as well. But, as you can see, shit ton of value. We had to correct a lot of things. That way, he could really move with speed when it comes down to the technique in itself, when it comes down to movements, right? Also, like sharing the wins on his weight, new high and stuff like that. That way, he could use it as a springboard to just keep pushing even harder with macros, with calories, with trainings, with recovery, with his habits, with his routines, with everything, right? And like the community really helped him out with this because the guys in there just legends, all right, every single one of them. And then he also had personal Notion dashboard. It is like a Google document. You can look at it as a headquarters, right, for all of your information. He had his why written in there, right? My why, um, the goal, the weight goal, the weight goal he wanted to achieve. He wanted to go to 75 kilos, but as we got to 73, we finished with the program. He was like, I want to start doing things by myself. I want to challenge myself because competition was also something that drove him, not only in handball, with when it comes down to competing with other people, but also just competing with himself. He was like, let me try this on my own. Like, I want to achieve those things. I want to be better when it comes down to being the man of my word, stuff like that. And I was like, bet, all right, like, let's see to where you can go, and just week and a half, he messaged me, he's at 74 kilos. So like, dude's fucking crushing it. And I'm gonna run you guys through the nutrition on how did it look like, right? But before that, Notion dashboard, all right? So he had personalized training program and Loom videos based on his personal lifestyle. Of course, everything with a PDF. So a Loom video, what is a Loom video? A Loom video is what you're watching right now, all right? So I would have a Google document in front of me of his training program, of his meal plan, and I would do a video for him, personalized video explaining every single thing when it comes down to training program, when it comes down to nutrition that he needs to pay attention to. He also had access to those in his dashboard home base. He had mindset course modules and then the recordings of all of the calls. There we were also tracking his lifts to really get that progressive overload dialed in, right? To really be specific with it and to not leave anything by chance and guesswork and stuff like that, right? So that is mostly how Google Notion dashboard look like. And if we go to nutrition, no, here is his exact calorie and macro intake that he was following. Pay attention to this, that he was following when he was, I think, 69 kilos, 70 kilos, right? Because as you gain weight, right? And if you're like, if the level of activity is the same, like your body just needs more energy, right? You're lighter, your body needs less energy, right? So that way, the surplus can't be always the same, because through time, as you gain weight, you will stop gaining weight and you'll be like in a blind spot where you'll be like, all right, like this shit got me to where I am now. Like, where to, like you end up just being confused. No, like higher the amount of calories that you're consuming, because your body needs more energy, because your body is heavier, right? As a, I don't know, take a car for example. A heavier car, you know, needs more gasoline than lighter car and stuff like that, right? You know it, the same goes to your body. Okay, so his maintenance calories at 69, 70 kilos, right, somewhere around that, was 3,387 calories. And on rest days, so to this maintenance, we added just a small surplus. Why a small surplus? Because like mostly we didn't want him to gain any excess fat. So that way his body could use those extra 200 calories, 300 calories to really recover those muscles properly, and not for anything else. Like that's why, you know, the result looks like this. You know, he still kept abs visible throughout the book, and I can comfortably say that it was a proper lean book, right? So back to the nutrition on rest days. So as you can see, 200 calories, you know, added on top of maintenance. So he was in 250 calories surplus. Rest days, 3,580 calories. Macros look like this: proteins 200 grams, fats 100 grams, carbs 470 grams. You know, when on the days when he had handball plus gyms, all right, so handball session 1.5 hours, and then gym session, as I said, 40 minutes to an hour, his surplus had to be, you know, his intake had to be higher. That's why it was 3,000, almost like 4,000 calories, all right? That's a lot, all right? Proteins and fats were the same as on the rest days, because usually, you know, the more active the individual is, the less fats he needs, right? The less fats he needs to consume. But so in this case, he would need to like eat 70 grams of fats and stuff like that, and still keep the proteins at 200 grams. But you know, when you eat more carbs, when you eat more proteins, there's fats in meat as well. So you really need to be strict with everything. The same goes to carbs. Like you won't eat just pasta. Of course, you have sauces and stuff like that next to it that has fats in there. All right. So that way he really needed to be more strict. He would really need to be more strict with macros and everything, and just live like a robot athlete, robot bodybuilder without any freedom and stuff like that. No, I didn't want that for him. All right. I was just like, all right, keep fats like the same 100 grams, higher the carb intake, and that was it, right? 560 grams of carbs as well. Like his body needed energy, right? With first of all, with just keeping him alive, maintaining the muscle mass and the weight he had, handball, and then gyms as well, right? So 4,000 calories, 4,000 calorie days were, you know, his higher days when he was at 70 kilos. Now imagine what it was like when he was, you know, 73, when he's 74 right now. Like his surplus on days like this, I bet you it looks like, because I taught him to do everything like this by himself, because with each and every single one of the guys that I work with, my goal is to be their last coach, because life's dynamic, all right? And as you go through life, you won't always need a coach. I want to teach you guys how to do this shit on your own when, you know, you don't have a coach, so that way you can coach your own self. You can be a coach to your own self. Of course, besides this, it's good to have someone to keep you on top of your shit, to keep you accountable, to have someone you're showing up for, you know, At least if you don't want to show up for yourself on certain days, show up for that person, right? Show up for him. He's working for you. He's giving it his 100% for your success. Give your 100% back, right? Stuff like that, right? And many more things that I could talk about, but the focus here is on nutrition, right? Carbs were higher. And when he had gym days only and handball days only, of course, with cardio, you burn more calories. And, with gym, you burn less calories. But I was just like, nah, fuck it. I don't want you, to be again robot athlete, strict with everything. That's so that way he should really be like, oh, okay, the day is this day, gym only, okay, handball only, I need to eat this. I was just like, no, like keep it the same, handball, gym only, like eat 3,765 calories, that's it. Proteins, fats, again the same. You know why? I explained it here. Carbs 500 grams. His body just needs less energy, and that's it, right? Like, when it comes down to macros, right now, I don't track my calories or macros, right? I don't track them. But I did when I was, on my weight gain journey. The same goes with this, right? I want to be your last coach as well. And besides, coaching you with routines, with habits, with trainings, and all of this stuff with recovery, I want to coach you with macros and calories as well, to the point where you will have a really good feeling and a really, good vision on how many calories and macros does each food and meal have, right? That way you'll be still able to make progress without tracking your calories or macros, right? But to get there, like, you need to be in the game. You need to track your calories and macros for a long period of time to really just integrate that muscle into your mind, right? And I took a screenshot of one of the days when he was tracking his calories and macros, that he sent it to me. Oh yeah, and we tracked everything on a macro factor. All right, the app is called, for tracking macros and calories, I used it as well. It's called Macro Factor. Macro Factor, right? Macro Factor, macro and calorie tracking app. As I mentioned, the goal was to stay consistent and solve problems along the way. And that's how he really got consistent and better each and every single solitary day with tracking his calories and macros, and was able to achieve results like this, dude. Just look at the back. Holy shit. So yeah, that was the transformation that Patrik was able to make. Now, you can implement this by yourself, absolutely no problem. Download Trainerize app, download MacroFactor app. But if you want to have someone by your side who will keep you accountable each and every single solitary day and keep you on top of your shit and make you show up, if not for yourself on days where you won't feel like doing it, at least for him, right? And will push you every single day to become the best version of yourself, um, reach out to me on Instagram. We can talk about how we can get you winning with functional workouts, for example, because I bet a lot of you guys, want to be athletic, want to have an athletic physique, but you're just doing bodybuilding movements only, don't really know how to start tracking your macros and calories properly, because you watch these bodybuilders, but they're professional at it. They make shit look easier, and you're really like, where should I start with all of those things and stuff like that? Much more than just accountability, as you can see. Reach out to me on Instagram, all right, with keyword hybrid. Usually people reach out to me, but also you can reach out to me just normally, like, hey, bro, what's up? And let's have a chat on how we can get you winning as fast as possible. That way we can really see what are the problems that we need to solve. And of course, if we are the right fit, we will jump on a qualification call, talk about those things more in depth, verbally as well, and we can get you winning as fast as possible and get you back on track towards becoming that 2.0 version of yourself. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this YouTube video, and I'll see you in a next one. Peace out.